4-year-old Bobby Dunbar disappeared during a family trip, and 8 months later he was found alive. But when another woman came forward, she insisted the child wasn't who everyone thought he was, and that he had been taken from her. In August of 1912, the Dunbar family traveled to Swayze Lake in Louisiana. It was meant to be a simple trip, just a quiet escape out in nature. The area was calm, surrounded by water, trees, and thick swampland. But this wasn't an isolated trip. There were dozens of people gathered at the camp that day. Families, children, and adults all moving around the area. At some point during the day, Bobby was walking back from the lake towards his family's tent. It wasn't far, only about 100 yards, and he was just slightly behind a small group of other children and adults. At the time they reached the camp and turned around, Bobby wasn't there anymore. One moment he had been right behind them, and the next he was gone. Search efforts began immediately. Volunteers flooded the area. Boats were sent out across the lake. Teams dragged the water again and again, hoping to find any sign of him. Divers searched below the surface, expecting the worst. What started as a desperate search slowly turned into quiet acceptance. Many believed the boy was gone forever. Bobby's parents were distraught with worry. Bobby's case drew widespread attention, and a reward was posted for his return. As time went on and no answers came, that reward was increased. Then, 8 months later, everything suddenly changed. Authorities received a tip about a man traveling with a young boy. His name was William Walters, and something about the situation raised suspicion. Walters claimed that the child with him had been placed in his care by the boy's mother. He said he was simply looking after him. But the story didn't sit right with investigators, and they decided to look deeper. Police detained Walters and examined the child. They began to suspect that this could be Bobby Dunbar. The reunion wasn't the instant miracle people expected. When the Dunbars were first brought in to see the boy, there was hesitation. The identification wasn't immediate, and there were moments of uncertainty as they tried to decide if this was really their child. It wasn't until later, after looking for specific physical details like marks and scars, that they became more confident. By the next day, they publicly stated the boy was Bobby Dunbar, and the story shifted into a miraculous reunion. But, just as everything seemed resolved, another woman stepped forward. Her name was Julia Anderson. She said the child was not Bobby Dunbar. She said his real name was Bruce Anderson, and that he was her son. Julia was a struggling field worker in North Carolina. She had been working for the family of William Walters. According to her, just a few months earlier, she had allowed her son Bruce to travel with Walters for a short period of time. Walters was known as a traveling handyman. Julia trusted the family he came from, and she was struggling to support her children. But when she heard a wealthy family in Louisiana had claimed the child as their missing son, she was horrified. Julia Anderson tried to prove her claim, describing details of the boy's life and how he came to be with Walters, but she struggled to convince authorities. Authorities had to make a decision. After examining the situation, they ruled in favor of the Dunbars. For the Dunbar family, it was a moment of relief. But for Julia Anderson, she was forced to walk away. Leaving behind the boy she believed was her son, years passed, and the boy grew up as Bobby Dunbar. He lived his life under that identity, never knowing the full truth. But nearly a century later, DNA testing was finally used to uncover the truth. The results were shocking. The man who had grown up as Bobby Dunbar was not biologically related to the Dunbar family at all, which meant the real Bobby Dunbar had never been found. And the child taken from Julia Anderson may have been her son all along. A missing boy was found, but he wasn't the one they were looking for.